This video is going to talk about Vigilant sensor placement and how to mount them. It's going to depend on your battery type. There's different ways you can mount it. So the sensor slides into the cradle like that. When you're trying to figure out how you're going to mount it, it's best to just take the sensor out and set it aside. So looking closer at the cradle, you'll see that first of all there's a hole in the middle. That's going to allow you to mount it, using some kind of hardware. Then there's also adhesive on the back, and there's adhesive on this top lip piece. So a typical application for mounting it with the adhesive would either be, if we zoom in over here on the unistrut, you can stick it on like that, just using adhesive. That way you don't have to get any extra hardware. Also, if your battery jar is larger, you could mount it on the top like this, and that way you don't even have to use unistrut or any additional hardware. In this video and for this application, we're going to actually mount it using spring nuts right on this unistrut. So I don't need this top lip piece. I'm just going to pop it down, take it off. I'll leave the adhesive on. There's no reason to take it off. It doesn't affect the ability to mount this via hardware. As far as placement, I've decided how I'm going to mount it. I'm going to use spring nuts and hardware. In terms of placement, you want it, especially for a flooded system like this where you have a lot of space around your battery, you kind of want the sensor to be mounted as close to the cell that it's measuring as possible. In this case, I have a two-step here. So my front cell, I'm going to put my sensor here, I'm going to run the wires up. And then for my back cell, on the back row, I'm going to do the bottom row of unistrut, run the wires down and up to the clamps. Same thing going on down here at the bottom, 2 rows of unistrut, we're going to run the cables behind and up. I have my cradle mounted. As you can see, my bolt is through the hole in the middle, so I can just slide the sensor on like that, and that's what it looks like when it's mounted. However, on the back of the sensor, you'll notice that there's an additional plug here for the electrolyte level sensor. We are going to use that. It's best practice to use these included stickers. They come in your sensor kit, and just cover up that bolt to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the sensor at all. So again, I can just slide that on, and that's our finished mounted sensor. The last thing you want to think about when you're choosing your sensor placement and where to mount them is the cable lengths. So the standard cable from the electrolyte level sensor down to the Vigilant sensor, that's going to be 12 inches. As you can see here, this is a little bit longer, so we actually had to make longer cables, and that's something our installers will do in the field if needed. The other cable length to worry about is the leads from the Vigilant sensor to the battery terminals. The supplied length for those is 40 inches, so we're all good on this battery. That's not going to be a problem, and we'll cut them to length so that there's not a bunch of excess slack. And that's how you mount your Vigilant sensor. So we just talked about mounting Vigilant sensors and placement for a flooded battery. Obviously, you're going to have other battery types, such as this small VRLA battery. These cells are too small. The front of this battery is too small to adequately place sensors in front of it. You don't want to put metal bars in front and unistrut and things like that. So for this type of battery, what we recommend is to install the sensors on the side, just like you see here, and run the cables over to the cell connections. The other option is to put them on the top. It really depends on how your VRLA front-facing battery is laid out. In certain situations, as we mentioned, these cables are 40 inches. In certain situations, you may have a wider battery system. In that case, we do have the ability to extend these leads for the specific cells that require longer cable extensions. So, the manuals, the quick start guides are going to talk more about your mounting options, but I just wanted to add on that this is another way that you can mount these sensors.